from all, to all, with all, for all, through all. We thank the gods of creation. We thank the ancestors. We thank the forces of nature. And we thank the earth. We thank them for their direction, their protection, their guidance, for keeping us, showing us, allowing us to know and enjoy life to its fullest, now and later.
Black people who once loved with the slow march of time. Time was ours to hold in the soft, love-warm chambers of our hearts. And once we, the Afro mommies and daddies of a sun world, would turn our strands of hair into antennas to tune in the juju madness and syncopated love rhythms of Africa. And we loved with time, and we took the time to love, and with the right time we loved, and we loved time after time. Will we ever love again? Will we ever love again? Will we really ever love again? Or will we just sit and rot away with the brighter tomorrows in the skag field, rat-cluttered halls of our minds?
Black people, what y'all gonna do? Black people, what y'all gonna do?
Will the real black people please stand up?
Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us facing.
Jumbo Habari, and welcome once again to Our Story, the program that makes being black positive, relevant, desirable, and true to a lost nation in America. A program that speaks to the historical significance of the original people of the earth. Our Story Network takes pride in setting itself away from other programs that centers on entertainment or rhetorical mumbo-jumbo that misdirects your attention onto other things that causes you to exhaust your resources and renders you brain dead. It is Our Story who talks about commitment to you and your people. It is Our Story that champions the reestablishment of the black genius that once ruled the world. It is Our Story that focuses you in on the rewards of black advocacy, black activism, black involvement, and black power. It is Our Story that encourages survival of the black race and solicits your involvement to that end. Black folks must remember race first is the call of the day, and we as a people must. I say must take the pledge if we, the people of the original race, expect to survive. As I take the many lessons I have received over the years and reflect upon them by sharing these lessons with my brothers and sisters, I realize the power that we as a people possess for the most part has gone unnoticed. The masses of black folks who have been rendered lost and disenfranchised from the meaning and mission our creators intended for us to embrace is all but depleted. It is because of the mission and meaning of our life of our ancestors that I realized how blessed as black people we really are. What fascinates me are the many gifts I have been granted, which allows me to distribute the information onward to you. As always, that message begins and ends with the importance of blackness. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Greetings, friends, comrades, family, and the inquisitive onlookers, our beloved viewers as well. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to our Story Network. We thank you for being with us this evening, and we trust you will take something of value away with you after the program. That is the aim and goal of our Story Network, the network that leads the pack in modern-day communications and ancient and modern education. I say ancient and modern education because of the many errors we have found in the translations and interpretations of ancient records. The modern revelations by new black scholars have opened the window of discovery that has allowed the truth and knowledge originally disseminated by the black masters of education to flourish once again. This is one of the stumbling blocks that has kept black people from rebuilding their greatness and recapturing their birthright. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Tonight, we will examine the potential of damaged minds derail the common good of the community that is trying to gain power and authority over their day-to-day existence. One of the questions that rises out of the science process of establishing the process and procedures of self-determination is, how do we correct the failed path of contemporary wisdom that has locked us as black people into a position of compromise and defeat? Compromise that has kept black people as slaves to the system and the process that created slavery for a number of disenfranchised people who end up with a lesser economic life. Less economics than any other ethnic group in America. The real question is racism, white supremacy controlling the inner circles of America today? If so, then it is time for blacks to withdraw their support, especially their financial support for this country and all of its racist doctrines. Racist doctrines that have refused and confused black people in the process of gaining liberty and justice for all. The bottom line to this charade is for black people to defy the gravitational pull of patriotism and begin to seriously consider black nationalism as a way of securing freedom, justice, and equality. Think about that, brothers and sisters. After 153 years of so-called emancipation from slavery, we, the black race in America, are still suffering from the 400 years of slavery. In addition, we, as blacks, are still suffering from the loss of a nation and the security nationalism affords. Every activity America has involved itself with concerning black citizenship in America has been to dispel any notion of civility or inclusiveness. 75 years after the end of slavery, America asked blacks to risk their lives in the defense of America in the Second World War. Yet blacks were forced to fight, eat, live, and worship separately and apart from white troops who were fighting for a landmass the Americans stole. Fast forward to a place called Right Now, and America still is placing blacks in a second-class citizen's role from sea to shining sea. Then America stands alone in making it clear to blacks they are not free to organize or participate in demonstrations that rebuke the national anthem, an anthem that glorifies the continuation of slavery for blacks in America. Malcolm X once said, "We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us." And there lies the problem. For everything Plymouth Rock means to whites, Plymouth Rock becomes a reminder to blacks that they too were victims of the deadly white disease that landed on the African coast and became collateral damage to the same whites' meaning, aims, and purposes that exterminated the original inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere. We too, as Africans, find ourselves at the deadly end of a relationship that exterminated many millions of people who met the foreigners with love and peace. Interestingly enough, this story plays over and over again. Intruders who are historically white come upon an inhabited land and begin to conquer that land as if the white race has a license to kill and steal. I said historically because prior to the introduction of the white race, there are few, if any, accounts of people of color attacking one another for selfish reasons. In fact, the accounts of white historians validate the strange phenomena. It is well documented by whites that people of color did not fight to the death. People of color did not fight to remove or displace others from their landmass. So why do we find white folks constantly and systematically killing and stealing land that they are not entitled to? That is a question we are going to pose to our guest tonight. A person who runs a 5-step program protecting our children from assault and attacks of a sexual nature. A sister who has the ability to guide and maneuver the black community through the rigorous post-traumatic stress disorder after the forced enslavement period of America. After the bloody years of Jim Crow and after the disenfranchisement of the civil and constitutional rights and privileges of a so-called free society. Sister Demetrice Morris. Sister Demetrice, give us a brief background of you and the work you're involved in.
Again, he said my name. I went to the University of New Orleans, and I have been a natural at just helping and solving problems, and so it became natural that I went from a pre-law major to a psychology major and graduated from the University of New Orleans in 2006. And then I went on to get 2 masters from Liberty University in Virginia, one which is in counseling and another which is in education. And so with that, I've had the ability to meet a lot of people and deal a lot with mental illness, deal a lot with people who definitely deals with post-traumatic stress disorder of all sorts. And one in particular that continues to land in my lap, of course, is sexual abuse. And, you know, with sexual abuse, it just seems to be something that continues to happen, one that does not stop, and it has not, it is not recognized, it is not drawing the attention in which it should in the black community or in any community, but especially in ours, because it seems that we as a community don't want to talk about it, we don't want to address it, we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to acknowledge it, we don't even want to learn how we can do better. I often hear excuses of, oh, I keep my kids with me. Oh, I don't let my kids sleep out. Or, you know, I've heard so many excuses. However, 1 in 10 kids are still being abused. 3.3 million kids are still receiving service every year. And we still get reports of 1,520 kids who die as a result of child abuse. So the idea that people are protecting their kids and they're getting better at it is a phenomenon. It is definitely not going anywhere. It is actually getting worse in the state of Louisiana, while national statistics say that kids are not dying as much as they did in 2008 from abuse. In Louisiana, our numbers are increasing. So it's a $20 billion problem.
Well, you know, it's interesting because sexual abuse in our community has really become a serious problem. But I can remember when I was growing up, it was there, we had it, but not to the extent that we're experiencing it today. In fact, when you would hear of it, it was almost like the world had come to an end. So I have done some research and found that there's a very interesting book that explains a lot of what is going on and why children are being targeted.
Okay.
The War on the Horizon by the Irritated Genie is a complete, compact piece of research that points out why homosexuality and child abuse go hand in hand.
Okay.
One of the reasons why we don't hear much about it is because, as we know, homosexuality has become such an accepted form of relationships in the country. Until now, we're allowing homosexuals to get married. Mm-hmm. So reading that book cleared up a lot of things, and it really exposed me to a lot of documentation that proves that the homosexual argument in favor of their activities is bogus.
Okay.
Now, the fact that you are involved in being a protector of our children, when I first met you at an event about a month ago and realized that was your life work, I had mentioned to you then that I wanted to have you on the show so that we could share this with our audience.
Okay.
I want to get into, because you have an interesting program that you have partnered with another group that's a national group that offers a 5-step principle program. Would you talk about that somewhat?
Darkness to Light. So Darkness to Light is something I learned about through Children's Hospital at the CAC. It is a program called Stewards of Children, and basically it teaches us 5 steps on how we are going to go about protecting kids. And, you know, it's not to go ahead and create vigilantes, not that we don't need vigilantes, but it just teaches us, one, you have to learn the facts. If you don't know that the problem exists, then you won't really look to do anything about a problem. And then 2, we have to learn to minimize the opportunity, regardless of the risk to us. We are the adults, they are the children, and if we don't protect them, then what's the point of being bigger and stronger and wiser if we don't use that to protect our future? And then we have to learn to talk about it. We have to stop being afraid to talk about what's going on, to expose the things that are in our homes, and then recognize the signs, and then we have to react responsibly. What do we do when we discover it? And how do we do it in a way that promotes children to grow up to be healthy and safe and resilient? Because kids naturally are resilient. They're going to recover if we take the steps to help them through the recovery process. So Darkness to Light basically just kind of teaches people what to do, how to do it, and just kind of make you cognizant of what's going on around you. because it's happening. You know, perpetrators have learned how to be just like us or be us. They are us. And so because of that, we don't know who's who. So this teaches us how to prevent it from happening.
I wanted to just make mention that our phone lines are open, the numbers are on the screen, and we will be accepting calls. I wanted to talk about, you're talking about the Darkness to Light program. I see here that you have a special event coming up January the 26th,
Yes.
which will run from 2 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. And it's going to the Louisiana Royal Hearts Foundation, and they're having this at the Old Metairie Library, 2350 Metairie Road, Metairie, Louisiana. Tell us about that.
So every quarter I try to offer a free class, mostly to parents. I do get a lot of professionals and I do appreciate them, but I offer it for free for those people so that there is no more excuses that we don't have the knowledge. I want to provide it to you guys. I want parents to learn what they can do differently and what they can see to stop this from happening. 90% of the kids that come into services for being abused are abused by people that are in our homes. They are the cousins, the uncles, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the friend, whomever. And so we have to understand that concept and learn what to do. So that event basically will allow you to come in, learn, share, hear from other people, but you get a chance to hear the stories of people who have been abused and how they've recovered. And also you'll learn who the abusers are. It's everyone. And so, once you learn that, you do things a little bit differently.
You also have Root Out Child Abuse, a 5K fun run. Tell us about that.
So yes, every year, this is our third year. So this is the third year that we're doing a 5K fun run. And basically, we started this race in order to bring recognition and awareness to the problem of child sexual abuse. Everything is brought up and recognized, and there's awareness for this. And we wanted to make sure that kids who are being abused have a voice. That this is something that they become comfortable with sharing with people. Hey, I'm abused. Hey, something happened. And I want them to be comfortable. So at the run, what we do is we always, of course, have a counseling agency there who is able to take any kid who may disclose at that moment. We also have usually the CAC, CASA, and different agencies who are there to foster care, DCFS, who comes out to make sure that our kids are protected. But we also have fun things too. And so we added this year the Red Bean Cook-Off. So for all of you local chefs out there who want a chance to win our first, second, or third prize, then you definitely can find more information out. And we just updated the information. You can go to my website or my Facebook page in order to find out more information. It's Louisiana Royal Hearts.
Now, you have been actively involved in disseminating information, but more so providing counseling and services for child abuse. Tell us, what are some of the signs that we should look for from our children that speaks that there could possibly be some distress there?
Any change that is different from what your child is normal. Most children are very vibrant, or they're outgoing, they're daring. And when you get a child who was daring and all of a sudden becomes withdrawn, reacts to touch differently, hides in their rooms, or the opposite of that, of course, is kids who then begin to act out. Kids who all of a sudden become aggressive. Kids who act out sexually, inappropriately, or touch, other kids, things like that. So, and there's really no cookie cutter sign, because it's just about differences. what a child was and who they are now. And when you see that there is an abrupt change, it is always possible that something has happened.
What do we have in way of other preventive programs or maintenance here in New Orleans? Do you know of any?
Prevention, there are a lot of agencies after the fact. Prevention, not so much.
There's always, we have to wait until the monster has come and slayed everyone,
yes.
And then we're going to go after the monster, huh?
Yes, Darkness to Light has been really one of the only prevention. There is another prevention program I'm not very familiar with, Prevention Plus, I think it is, or Parent Plus, that also teaches a little bit about prevention, but I think it also ties into Darkness to Light as well. So, but not a lot.
Now, how does New Orleans shape up against other cities that have programs similar to yours there? Are we somewhere in the...
well, we're 47th in being able to protect our kids.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, we rank number 47 in the ability to protect our kids.
And that's out of the 50 states?
Correct.
Oh, goodness gracious. My goodness. So what do you tell parents as far as what they need to be aware of to try to protect their children?
Just be educated. Don't take anything for granted. Something happening does not mean that you are a horrible parent. So the first thing is you have to be open to knowledge and be open to the fact that you're not perfect. You won't make every perfect choice when it comes to the people that are around you, because you don't even know if it's not, a cousin or a brother or an uncle or a grandfather. You don't know. You could have been a person that just kind of bypassed the situation. So just get educated, because abuse comes in so many different forms that it's just not very easy to say, to just write it off and say, oh, it's never going to happen, because again, I stay employed because it happens every day.
Now, I see that you have partnered with one of our own from NATV, Renata Collins.
Yes.
To put on a January 1, that's New Year's Day.
January 19th.
2019.
19th.
Oh, it's the 19th?
Yes.
All right, they have the first here. Okay.
Yes.
The 19th at 6 p.m. Tell us about that.
So January 19th is our sponsorship drive, and what we're doing is Cocktails for a Cause. We're welcoming all businesses to come out, and even if you want to come out and you want to give a donation, this is your opportunity to stand in front of child abuse and say, hey, I'm going to take a stand. And so there, what we're doing is we're just, networking. We're going to honor some of the sponsors who have stood with us for the last 3 years. Those who are returning, we want to make sure that we acknowledge them and give them an opportunity to introduce their businesses to other businesses who will be attending the event. You can register on Eventbrite. It is a free event. You can register for free. There is no charge. However, we do need your support, and so we ask that you do come out. Renata Collins will be our host. She will be entertaining you guys, and you'll get a chance to learn a little bit more about Louisiana Royal Hearts, what we do, and what we've been doing with your money. So we take every dime we get and we put it back into the community. I have not, as of yet, learned how to pay myself. So your money, I promise, goes straight back to the people.
In your experiences here in New Orleans with your organization, what has been the overall reception?
Everybody thinks it's a great idea, but not great enough to help. So it's a wonderful idea. You're doing a great work, but nobody really steps up to help. Now, there are some that will, give money and support, but we do want you to show up. We want you to bring the kids out. We want you to come and learn what's going on in this community with our children and be able to be educated and take a stand and help to fight this epidemic. Because if this continues to happen, all we do is put out more hurt kids, and it takes a long time to recover, and some people never do. And so the effects of child abuse continues to add up. It's costly. It's costly for people's hearts, minds, relationships, and financially for the government.
Tell me, why is it necessary for our children to be educated? I mean, what are the pluses in doing this and exposing our children to some of the realities of this cruel, monstrative world?
Well, one is because perpetrators are so good at mimicking, being so helpful, being so wonderful, being child advocates themselves, that our kids need to know that anything that doesn't feel right, they can trust their gut. They need to learn that they have a right to speak up. They have a right to say no. No one has a right to their bodies. No one has a right to hurt them. And when you educate kids on what is acceptable and how they should be treated and what is not acceptable and what should not occur, and give them the power to say no, then we begin to teach them, one, how to become healthy adults. In the end, and that helps with prevention as well, because when you have a kid who's educated, then that kid gets to speak out. Now, it doesn't mean the adult can't overpower them, but most adults, most perpetrators are not going to take the risk.
What ages are we talking about is best to start educating your children? Yeah.
As soon as they can understand. We have victims who are 18 months. We have victims who are 2 years old. We have victims that are 4. So as soon as kids begin to understand their bodies, when you bathe your children, it is always a great idea to teach them what parts of their body is acceptable. Start teaching them how to protect those areas that is covered by a bathing suit. If a bathing suit covers that area is special and no one should touch it. And so things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, how do you grade the response of parents in involving their children and educating their children?
How I grade them? I don't know. I would say grading them would probably be in the C range, only because, for us who have been victims of child abuse ourselves, I think we feel that we have learned and we know what it's going to be like. We know who it's going to be, or we think we can recognize. So we don't do anything. We don't really educate because we think we have this superpower. And so we fail. And then parents who have never experienced it, they just turn a blind eye because they're not very aware of how much this problem affects us. So, and then you have those who are in the field, then yes, they're going to get an A because they know what's going on, and so, or they've been touched by it and they want to learn. So, but most of them, they're not interested.
Tell me about PTSD for children and adults that have encountered this kind of abuse.
Okay, so you see PTSD in children and adults of sexual abuse in relationships, in loud sounds, in being alone in frightening places, or even in things like just a simple touch. One of the ways that you can recognize if a child's been abused is if you touch a child without them knowing you're there and they jump, that's usually a sign of PTSD as it relates to child sexual abuse or physical abuse. Hearing loud sounds for kids who have, gotten beat or things like that. Just seeing someone raise their hand can throw them into a traumatic situation. And their stress levels, their reactivity can vary. They can go from fight to flight, and they become, very risk-taking. They do a lot of risk-taking behaviors. In their trust level for people, so they struggle in relationships. They struggle with dealing with people or overcoming certain things, and it begins to affect them throughout their entire life in just different areas, and you don't see them succeed to be the people that they could be had this abuse not happened.
You said something to me before we went on the air that kind of shocked me.
Okay.
Talk about the suicides in children.
Yes, and then of course there is always suicide. I've had clients as young as 8 years old who wanted to kill themselves because of things that has occurred in their lifetime. A kid who is 8 haven't even lived. How do they know they want to die? But they do know they want to escape this pain. And no child should feel that the only way to escape painful situations is through suicide. And that's because we as parents, we as adults, we're failing in keeping them safe, or even being a valuable person for them to feel safe enough to talk to. And so we have to learn how to change our language. We have to learn how to interact with our kids. We have to learn how to have those conversations. And we have to learn how to learn the facts, learn who are the abusers and where the abusers could be. Because when we learn, when we know, then we can do something about it.
When should the professionals be called in? And I'm talking about the medical professionals, the hospital or the doctor, and the police. When should they get involved?
Immediately. Immediately. One of the things that that happens is we want to keep it quiet. We don't really want all those people in our business, the Black community. No one needs to come in our house. Nobody needs to know what goes on in our house or behind closed doors. And this is our home. You don't talk about it. You don't say anything. Well, that's hurting us. Not saying anything does not make the situation goes away. Actually, what you do is you protect the person who's hurting people, and you are saying to the victim, you're not important enough for me to save. You're not important enough for me to call in any help. So definitely, they should be called immediately. So that kid needs to know that you care. That kid needs to know that no matter what happens, they can count on you. And when you call the rescue squad, then they know that they're important to you. And that makes a big difference.
Are our lawmakers, both state and city, getting involved in any way?
I haven't met anyone, but there are a lot of people who do speak up, and I've seen where they talk about, the importance of child abuse, and there are laws, and they're rewritten. Right now, sex trafficking is big, and they are rewriting those laws and making sure, but I'm not really seeing a whole lot on perpetrators. I know that sex crimes are very difficult to prosecute, but we are sending a message to our children that it doesn't make sense to say anything, and I don't have a right, and nothing will be done because nothing is done. Kids are abused, and the perpetrator go free. The case is never even brought to trial most times, and so it sends a message, and that message is you're not important. So perpetrators get out scot-free, and kids are having to live with the reality that I said something and it didn't matter.
I'm hearing a lot that there's a big effort going on to rewrite the definition of pedophilia. You aware of that and familiar with that at all, where they're trying to lessen it as a crime?
Yeah. I've heard some talk about changing the language. while they're changing the language, it seems that some laws for child abuse, or they're defining the difference between rape and molestation, and they're playing with that. And depending on the age of the child and what the actual sexual act was, depends on the amount of time they get. And the older the child is, the less amount of years they get. So that kind of thing. And now rape, of course, is a different monster in itself, but it's just not sending a great message to our kids. So changing pedophilia and saying, hey, this is what it is and this is what it's not, when we all know that the act of having a sexual relation, fantasy, thought process, or whatever of a child is just, a child can't consent. It's wrong. And so it's wrong, you do it, you should be prosecuted.
Is the current situation and current laws that cause or force sex offenders to register, is that aiding in this at all, or is it, are the offenders finding ways around that?
I think offenders find ways around it. Now, does it aid in the actual changing?
Yeah.
I'm sure. It depends on who is the pedophile. Depending on who the pedophile is, they'll get any law changed if you connect it. That's always been something in politics. That's always been something that has been a game changer. Now, if it's a regular Joe Blow and they don't matter, they're going to get the max of the law. But depending on who the pedophile is, and it seems now with the president that we have, abusing people is okay.
Yeah.
So, this is a time if people who are hurting people wants to get some things changed, hey, why not do it while we have this president,
Yeah. I want to thank our viewers for watching, and we have a caller. I want to tell our caller to turn the volume on the TV all the way down. Talk to us directly in and through the telephone. We appreciate your participation, caller. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, I was sitting here listening to the interesting topic, and I'm referencing to a news story today that the former sheriff of St. Tammany Parish, Jack Strand, while he was being investigated initially for some sort of kickback scheme of robbery, now the investigation is looking into him sexually assaulting juveniles, and he had like some little work program through his prison reform effort or whatever he had in St. Tammany Parish. And that is something that we're beginning to see a lot of powerful people who are in positions who are sexually assaulting minors and children. And when we look at laws being passed, some of these people might be the powerful people themselves participating in this. And when we look at the Catholic Church and the archdiocese locally releasing the names of people who were accused, it's just really, this thing is just really, really deep, like it's touching, taking down the mafia or attacking the mafia or something. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just curious as to, in the young lady's work, has she come up against allegations against powerful people participating in the exploitation of children? And I continue to listen. Thank you.
Powerful people, pastors, yeah, but not any politicians as of yet. Or people or police officers, none of those as of yet. Not that it hasn't happened, they just haven't landed in my lap. But I did have a case where a pastor was arrested, but it took, the mom had to do some different things. She had to go overboard in order to get the case prosecuted.
I have some comments that I'm going to make, but I have another caller on the line. Caller, welcome to our story. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. Good show as usual. I'd like to ask the lady who's very knowledgeable, is black pedophilia pretty bad in New Orleans compared to the rest of the country. And it's child abuse much worse here than the rest of the country. It's about the same everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. She's going to answer. Go ahead, sister.
Is it worse? No. I think it's everywhere. Those numbers don't get to 3.3 million in one state be worse than the other. Collectively, we're doing a horrible job of protecting kids. Now, it is true that we rank 47th in being able to protect our kids, which means that there are a lot of other states that are performing much better than we are with protecting our kids. And then the other question was something about...
He was asking, the question was, Louisiana better or worse than other states on both black pedophilia and then child abuse?
And when as it relates to the question of black pedophilia, no, it has no race. There is no race when it comes to pedophilia. It is one of those that have crossed countries. Out of the United States is probably worse than in the United States. So, so to answer that question, child abuse itself, yes, it's not worse here. It's everywhere. We have though had a large increase of deaths, so we are ranking higher as it relates to killing our kids.
Now, the first caller talked about the powerful people in high positions using their leverage to assault and abuse children, young adults. He mentioned Jack Strand from across the lake. And we have found this all throughout history. But I noticed the Catholic Church just came out with a new list of priests that had been caught abusing children. And they knew about it, didn't report it, and now they're going to come clean with it. To me, that's not only too little too late, but the Catholic Church needs to come clean with why they prey on children. Most of us are not aware that within the Catholic Church, homosexuality is akin to rituals that are performed that increases the station and rank of the priests moving through the churchhood on their way to Pope. We don't hear anything about the fact that this is a crisis that is rooted in the religious belief system of the European Christian Church. Since the white have come and taken over the birthright of the Hebrews, they have introduced sexual misconduct with children as well. The Jews have a rites of passage that they must have involvement with children in order to elevate within their ranks. We don't hear anything about that.
Not at all.
But there's documentation that talks about and reveals this. But the media doesn't talk about it. Nobody's bringing it up. And it needs to be brought up, because if that's the case, which it is, then that's the heart of the problem. If it is something that is tied to rituals, then we're not going to get rid of it.
I mean, the idea of taking youth brides or young brides or child brides has been a practice for forever. And so because that has been forever, it's almost as if children does not have a right to say no. But this is America, this is a new day, and they do. And so the idea that, you know, this is something that continues to be practiced, and the priest, you know, that you know, you're right, too little too late. And then there are victims who are still coming out saying, hey, the priest that you know, hurt me, his name is not on the list. So that shows that they're not giving full anonymity. They're not actually telling everything. They're keeping some things behind. They're not revealing all that is going on. And then in St. Tammany, it is a known fact that any person of influence or means who is a pedophile will place themselves in a situation where children are accessible. So camp counselors, pastors, youth leaders, Girl Scout, Boy Scouts, Boys and Girls Club, they're in those organizations. They're going to be in places where kids are accessible. They're not going to be the monsters that you see or you think about. They're going to be the people that you want your son to go and spend the weekend with, because his son is also a camp counselor and he really took a liking to your son and he sees something in him, and so he wants to make sure that he's the best basketball player or the best football player, so he wants to spend extra time with them grooming him. Well, that groomer could be a child molester, and a lot of them are. And not saying that there are not some good coaches who say, hey, this is what I do, and not to say all of them are that way, but a person who is a child molester is going to put themselves in places where kids are accessible. And if they've not been caught, they don't have a record.
You know, you are with the Louisiana Royal Hearts Foundation.
Yes.
And I wanted to share with our viewers the fact that you can be reached at area code 504-421-3794. You can also be reached at Demetrice, DEMETRICEKDM2 at yahoo.com.
Correct.
I want to thank, we have the fastest hour in television, and it has been an extreme pleasure and informational time with you here, and I will be bringing you back so that we can remind the people when these events are coming up, as well as moving along with our educational program on child welfare, child protection, and mental health in our community. Before we get out of here, I want to talk about this Friday, the Southern University at New Orleans School of Social Work cordially invites you to the Holiday Alumni Roundup Social, which will be December the 14th, that's this Friday, from 6 until 9 p.m. at the Millie M. Charles Building on campus. They will have live music by Sharon Martin and friends, and they are asking you to come out so you can meet new friends, meet your old friends, the alumni, those that are supporters of this School of Social Work, and those that just want to come out and have a good time. So, if you would, for more information, you can give me a call at 251-2201, and I can give you more information on that. As I talk about the book, Our Story, the Original Holocaust, I wanted to make mention of the fact that it's still available over at Community Book Center on Bayou Road, and I would urge you, if you haven't gotten your copy yet, to get your copy because you will find out information in here that is not readily disseminated in the open media marketplace. And we also have the information about the radio show that comes on every Monday from 10 until 12. I co-host with Chuck Perkins on his Chuck Wagon show. We'd like to hear from you there. And if you have anything that's on your mind or you want to present, give me a call at that number online there, and we'll see if we can't make it happen. I want to remind you that we have Sir Shadow's new calendar out. This is his 20th anniversary edition, and this is the one-line art, and he is also a poet and an artist and a philosopher. So you can call me for more information on that as well. As always, we tell you that we're here because you are there needing additional information to make crucial decisions on each and every day. We ask you to get involved. We ask you to bring about awareness in your family and in your community about blackness. Stay involved. But the most important thing, brothers and sisters, is stay committed to blackness. Till we meet again, Uhuru Sasa Umgawa.
Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun,
Facing the rising sun.
of our new day begun.
It's a new day.
Let us march on
Yeah.
till victory is
Yeah.
won. Till victory is
This is
won.
victory music. Come on, I hope you feel it.
Ba-ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.